Hello everyone. This is the last in this present set, and today I'm going to demonstrate the sponging technique at the same time as painting a pot of sweet peas. Other suggestions might be used for sponging, which I will show you towards the end. But today I'm actually going to use my sponge to decorate my vessel. But so I'll talk you through it as we go along. If in fact you do end up painting sweet peas like me, these are the colours that I've used today. But I want you to paint a vase of flowers and choosing your own flowers mix of flowers to put inside. I've told several of you before of the way that you can actually create a symmetrical pot, and usually when we paint something like terracotta or something more rustic, it isn't that important to create a very symmetrical pot. But if you're painting something that's ceramic or glass, you do need to try and get it symmetrical. And this is the pot that I've actually chosen to paint because there's not with these particular patterns on it, but just to get the shape that I want. And it's a nice fat pot, so there's plenty for me to go at. So what in fact you do is to create a central line, and it must be in the centre. And then with your ruler you measure equal distance either side of that central line. This is just a guide for you to see, but you can copy this if you feel that that's the sort of shape that you want. Then all you actually do is take your pencil and carefully just create the shape that you're looking for. But you have to remember that it's spherical at the top, it's spherical at the bottom, and then you've got the sort of shape that you will be looking for. But you may obviously create a different shape to me, so just make sure that you measure up well and you get it looking right. But I've actually taken this technique a stage further, and after doing my measuring, I then cut out the centre of it, which meant that I could then, so it needs to be a stiff enough piece of card or thick paper, which meant that I could then use my template to create the shape by drawing around the inside of it. And I will be using this again, and you'll see then the main reason for having done that. But first of all, I think I will just paint one little sweet pea for you. I'm hoping my voice is going to hold out today. I was at a concert last night and speaking over the top of the loud music, and I woke up this morning with actually no voice. So I'm actually going to paint my sweet pea without drawing first, but obviously with your flowers, if you feel you would prefer to, you're quite welcome to do nice drawing first and fill your pot with whatever flowers you choose to paint. So I'm just getting the basic shape of my sweet pea to start with. So I've drawn the little edges and then quickly bringing that next layer in, either of water or paint, to create not a hard edge but a softer edge, which is important. Don't want hard lines around it. And then I'll go back and put some greenery on the top of that one in a minute. But I'm looking at the purple colour, and so I'm using Windsor Violet with a little bit of quinacridone magenta, because I can see pinky tinges in my little sweet pea. Another one of my favourite flowers, lovely, lovely flowers and pretty to paint. So quite a bit of water going on. Quickly just bringing that down. You can work wet on wet if you prefer to. Any of these techniques will work nicely with a fairly transparent looking flower. Looking carefully at the various shapes that this flower creates, and lifting off some light back where you feel you need to. Very frilly, this one. I'm using a size 8 sable blend. I'll try not to talk too much because I think it's possible my voice may disappear again. Bit of a relief for the tech team. So this one has taken on really quite an unusual shape, but depending on which way you look at these things, they do tend to... Actually, it's quite a lot darker up there, so I'm just going again with a darker mix. They take on all sorts of different shapes and sizes. And then there's one more little frilly one at the bottom here. And I'll thread the stalk through after I've actually just painted this little sweet pea. This one's looking straight at me. More pink in that one, just here. Now hopefully I can bring that together by putting the little leaves and stalks on. This is just a quick sketch. Take a little bit more time perhaps over it than I've managed to do. But I knew I wouldn't have time to do a whole pot of flowers today, and I wanted to talk through the one or two other things that you may find helpful with regard to painting things in a vessel. Lovely fresh little flowers. So let that brush do the work, making these little leafy shapes. And then that stalk bends right round there like this and gets a bit wider at the bottom. So that's just a very quick impression of a sweet pea, and more or less what I was doing here, but taking a bit more time over it. So now let's get back to this pot and the sponging technique. So the reason I mainly cut this out is because I wanted to make sure that my sponging, the pattern that I put on the pot, doesn't go over the edges onto my work. So I'm going to get a little bit of tape, just tape that down to keep it steady. Then I'll have two hands to work with. It may seem a bit of a long drawn out performance, but I think it's well worth it. But if you feel that you can create your pot without going over the edges of it, then, you know, all well and good. I've got two sponges out here. This is just from an ordinary bath sponge that I've pulled apart, but these are the little sponges that I sell, and you can buy little from art shops and things. So it is a matter of wetting it. And I think I'll use this smaller one, the one that's got smaller sort of textured holes in it. But what I tend to do is, because it needs to be damp but not wet, so I would take a tissue and just squeeze it in the tissue to get the excess paint and water out before popping the paint on. So I've used two colours. I've got a cobalt violet out, and so I'm actually just going to, and what I really should have done beforehand is to put some masking fluid on to create some shine in here and there, but you can do that anytime. So it's a matter of not dragging, but just pressing your sponge down onto the marks, creating nice marks. And this means that you can go up to the edges, because I've got this template that is going to help with this situation. Now I'm going to wash it out in clean water, bring it out again, my tissue. I'm going to pop a little bit of green, and I've got Viridian, which I thought would look nice beside the pink, but also create a balance with the flowers, the colour of the flowers that I've already popped in my vase. So that's a random pattern on my pot, so you can choose which colours you like. And create a nice pattern. So that's that. Let's lift and see what we've got. Okay, so that's actually looking all right. It's quite a pretty pot. So because I didn't leave any areas of shine, I wonder if I can actually just, there's some here already, which is good. I just wonder if I can lift a little bit off with my texture brush, my little eradicator brush, just some little light areas. I would suggest that you actually use the masking fluid, or in fact you could use candle wax, but I'll just lift some little areas of shine back off just to create a little bit more realism. I think that's fine, but I think what it really does need again is a little bit more paint and colour, perhaps a little bit of shadow going on under here. So carefully does it. A little bit of depth under that rim. And I'm just mixing those two colours together, which is making me quite a nice grey. And then a little tiny bit under here where it gets dark. So look at your pot all the time and see where the shine is, trying to keep your head nice and still. That could be slightly darker, I think. And then I guess I should just ground this little pot of flowers. So I'll just put a little bit of water down, let some of that bleed into my shape here. And this is a lighter side than this side, so the dark's coming here, this way. And I'm going to just drop in some of these colours, just to create a nice little bit of shadow and a little bit of grounding here, using all these lovely blues and purples and sticking to those colours with a touch of green as well, and yellow. But that's all you really need to do, just to ground that little pot. Okay. So that's all there is really to using the sponging technique. So choose your own pot, choose your own flowers, choose your own colours for your pot and create a nice pattern. But if you were to go for sweet peas, if you've got sweet peas, when it comes to the ones that I've got so many tendrils, they're so pretty. I put lots in, but I didn't draw the tendrils. I just used my sword brush to create those little tendrils and these little areas at the edges that have, you know, just little spiky leaves and little buds and things, which actually creates a nice looser effect. But the other thing you must do is not overbalance your pot. I used this big pot because I wanted a big space to show you the sponging, but I may have preferred to have had something slightly more slender, but I don't feel I've overbalanced it that way. Sometimes you can just create too high a situation with your flowers so that you've actually overbalanced your pot all the other way around. Had them too low in a big pot, which would look wrong as well. I'm sure you realise that you need to keep an eye on that. So other things that you can think of doing, I think, with this technique might be to use the sponging to create the impression of some little flowers behind, or, you know, just a background even. But I kind of thought that that might indicate flowers similar to Stephanosis or something like that. Little feathery flowers. That took about 2 minutes to create a nice tree with the sponging and the Tombow pen. So think about that in your foliage with trees, hedges, leaves, anything like that would be really good. Useful subject, bougainvillea. I need to sort of just thread a few more branches and things through, but bougainvillea, trailing over a wall, or any flower similar to that might, you know, trail over the wall. But this was my favourite, and that took about 2 seconds. It's not cow parsley, I'm not sure actually what it is, but I have actually got it in my garden, and it's this plant, which has got lovely feathery leaves. Smells very nice. Some of you will know what that's called, but that created a really, really good impression of this flower, and how quick that would be, and look how nice it would look on something like a card for someone. So you can knock up a card for people really quickly using this sponging technique. And in fact, I don't think you could paint that in such a delicate and natural looking way with a brush. So, you know, it is a useful technique, and perhaps you can think of some other ways in which you could use it. But if you have a sponge that has a wider texture, let's just see what might happen. Perhaps again would be good for trees or marks on rocks or whatever. Let's see what happens if I actually just have tissue, so this is going to be a bit wet, but it has got a very open texture to it, this sponge, so it will actually create different marks. So that would be very nice in a background. You could put a light background down using this kind of technique first and then paint over the top. Or you could shield an area left free to paint some flowers in. What happens if you drag it? You get crisscross type marks, grassy type marks. So there are other things that you could perhaps think about doing with it. But a mixture of colours in there would look really nice for a lovely sort of simple light background. Let me just try some yellow on the top of that and see what happens. I'm making it up as I go along now. But think about your complementary colours, see what happens. So popping some of this on the top, putting those two colours together. Really nice. I could see some flowers behind that. So there we are, that's it for this week. But as I said last week, don't forget your Tombow pen, and if you've got sweet peas or a lot of one particular flower that you really like and you want to paint again and again, do think about drawing a page of them that you can create something with at a later date. So it's always difficult to create a symmetrical pot, but this is one way that makes it a lot simpler, so perhaps you might like to have a go. Also, you can use some pen work on your flowers if you feel you'd like to, or if some of them end up a little bit weak, maybe put some pen on here and there. But do create a nice balance between your vessel and your flowers, and hope that, you know, it will look right in the end. Next week I'm going to continue with flowers, and I'm going to portray them in various situations, probably as they sit in the garden or a pot in the garden, and using mixed media again possibly, and some different techniques. And I don't feel we've quite finished with the techniques this time, so I'll carry it over a little bit. And the flowers are so lovely at the moment that I think we should continue to make the best of them. So have a good week, everyone, and I shall love looking at your vessels that you create for us. And so see you next week. Take care. Bye.